4 channels. That law defined the airwaves as public property to be licensed to private businesses, which could prove that they were the most qualified to broadcast in the public interest. The phrase the law used was the public interest, convenience, and necessity. That was one of the first things I learned in broadcast journalism school in the days that I was coming up, or you would learn in broadcast law classes, the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Those words in a law that dates to 1924. So to prove their earnestness about the public interest, convenience, and necessity, the biggest licensees, the early major networks, set up these news divisions that were classy and expensive and tried to give objective news that would be broadly acceptable to the American public of either major party or no major party. And by today's standards, that, however, was a pretty narrow swath of people. Women were rarities on or off the air in those news divisions. It was a Mad Men kind of world, not to mention missing black people, and as close as Latinos got to network news was Ricky Ricardo. And if you think about it, there were pros and cons to that kind of government oversight. It made the networks be responsible in the ways I described, but it also made the country's most important news organizations accountable to the very government they were supposed to be covering independently. We still have that tension. Look at the scandal in the news this week about going into the AP's records and those of journalists at the AP, which the government feels a license to do in a Terrorism Weeks incident. But one reason it took such courage for Murrow to do what he did in taking on Joe McCarthy, to cite a classic example, is that McCarthy, powerful senator, had some power over the networks indirectly. And in today's more unregulated environment, MSNBC would be slashing away at him from day one and not have to worry about it, though they would still have to worry about turning off their sponsors. From the totally self-serving department, that's one reason that public broadcasting is so necessary, in my opinion. When we think of commercial-free programming, most people think of commercial-free programming first of not having your ears assaulted by crass advertising. Oh, I don't have to listen to commercials. I don't have to have the programming interrupted by commercials for 17 minutes an hour. And it is 17 minutes an hour on successful commercial radio stations. But much more important to me is the fact that news supported by advertisers will tend toward the popular, because advertisers don't really care about content, they just care about numbers, and journalism should be concerned with what's important and not what's popular.